New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And Mindy Hart-Audlin. It's great to be here with everybody.
Welcome, welcome. You are watching New Thought today on the New Thought Media Network. It's 2 o'clock on the Mountain Time Zone, and only 2 of us are on the Mountain Time Zone today because our dear friend Mindy Hart-Audlin is with us, and you're in New York State now. But however, we first met in Colorado, so I always just think of you as a Colorado girl. I guess I never even know where you're really from. So
hey, my heart is always on Mountain Time, you know.
There we go. We love it. So we've got a great conversation for you here today, but I do want to say, Mindy, welcome aboard, and share with us a little bit. Let our audience know a little bit more about you. What do we need to know to be able to get this conversation going?
Oh, what do we need to know? Well, first of all, know that I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It is great to be here on New Thought today. New Thought has been a passion of mine for a very long time. I was just sharing, I'm coming up on my 20th anniversary from when I began as the spiritual leader of the Unity Church in Wimberley, Texas, outside of Austin. And it has been quite a journey and quite an adventure. I have been a spiritual leader. I am a licensed teacher through Unity. I also pioneered the Unity online radio network. And as you know, you're a pioneer in this online world as well. And most recently, I started the Spirit Groups program, which is now under the leadership of Unity Worldwide Ministries. So in the midst of that, I have a book that I wrote in 2008. So it's been a while. It's called What If It All Goes Right? And now I'm out speaking on that and bringing that work to the world in bigger and broader and more expansive ways. So lots of great things.
Beautiful. And we want to talk a lot about the book and all that. However, we also do love to get a little bit of the kind of the backstory and the history and what got you started in all this, what got you into and recognizing you came through the door of Unity. Reverend LZ and I came through the door of religious science. I know there's folks out there watching that have come through other doors to get to this great, glorious group that we call New Thought. Help us understand that a little bit. Share a little bit of your story with us, if you would.
Well, the real door that brought me into New Thought is the door that probably brings a lot of people into New Thought, which is my life bottomed out. So, like nothing worked and I didn't have any ladder to grasp onto to get to that, get my head out of the water. I had gone through a divorce. I had lost my job and I was sinking. And a friend of mine mentioned to me that she was attending this Unity Church in Austin, Texas, and she mentioned it again, and then she mentioned it again. And finally, I got desperate enough to think maybe I should try it. And I went one Sunday. Reverend Linda Pendergrass was the minister there at the time, and I cried through the whole service and was like, okay, let's do that again. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. So that was my beginnings in New Thought. And then I went on, I did other things. And then as I met my husband, we moved back to Austin and I said, you got to try this Unity thing. And at that point, what opened the door for us was really the prosperity teachings. We were really, kind of struggling financially, about to get married. And we saw this amazing New Thought speaker named Edwene Gaines. And we're like, okay, what she's selling, that's what I want. I want that kind of thinking. I want that mindset. And it was through the inspiration that we received from Edwene, that we and doing the 4T prosperity program and all the prosperity teachings that really got us into the New Thought world in a leadership capacity, not just as something that we were studying, but something that I personally became a leader of.
Beautiful. And eventually you find yourself in Colorado.
Eventually I find myself in Colorado. Yes, I had my book launch, and I was speaking at a lot of New Thought churches and living in Dallas, Fort Worth, where there are a lot of New Thought churches. There's also a lot of mega churches. And I sort of took it upon myself as I was traveling around at all these small New Thought churches. And then when I wasn't speaking, enormous churches, and thinking like, what are they doing over there? Because I believe in our principles. I believe in, like if there's a manifestation, that it is rooted in some sort of cause, some divine, like what is it that's going on? What are they thinking that we could learn from? And so I started studying that, and it led me to create what is now the Spirit Groups program, which is used through New Thought and particularly Unity churches. I went to Colorado to develop that because, hey, it's Colorado. Who wouldn't want to be in Colorado? Got that going, and it just enjoyed, working. I worked with the Unity Church at Red Rocks, which was an amazing experience. And also with that ministry, we were testing things out and experimenting and getting Spirit Groups out to as many ministries as we could.
Well, I can tell you for sure, there's a whole lot happening now. So you're right on time with that happening right now, because we're in a state where we have to balance so much, and the ability to have a positive, realistically positive, not a toxic positivity, as they sometimes say, of how we navigate and how we begin to create real connection, real community is needed now more than any other time that I know about.
I agree. You see it in, the Surgeon General has put out the report about the loneliness epidemic and how it's affecting us, how it's affecting our health, how it's affecting us as a nation, how it's affecting our economy. It affects everything. And I think that's really an opportunity. An opportunity. Like, this is a time, it's a tap on the shoulder to say, come on. All right. The world needs you. The world needs you. We need this connection. We need the teachings, and we need the teachings in a context that allows people to connect with other people, where we can serve each other and learn together and grow together. It is a very, very important time for these teachings.
So tell us a little more about Spirit Groups, because when we first got introduced to each other, that was your primary, it seemed, mission is getting that ministry up and running. And now, as you mentioned in your introduction, that's been adopted by Unity Worldwide Ministries. It's on their website. It's a major offering into that camp, if you will, of the movement. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did it come about, and how does it work? How could people get involved?
Yeah, well, I think part of the blessing of my journey in particular is I really dove in the deep end without having a whole lot of training. So I was serving with Special Dispensation in Texas as spiritual leader and going through getting my licensed, Unity teacher credentials. But I stepped into a leadership role, having only taken 4T and Lessons in Truth, I think was all I'd taken. So it was like a crash course in Unity leadership. And because I didn't have a lot of church experience from my background, I started studying. I was studying the New Thought principles through my credentialing, but I also started studying the organizational structure that I was seeing in churches like Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Church and some of the larger like Life Church types of organizations, and seeing what do they do? How do you grow an organization? How do you grow a spiritual community? And what I learned from them that was done so well and so beautifully that I wasn't seeing to the same degree in our New Thought churches. What I was seeing was this mission-driven approach to ministry, where it wasn't about the person speaking on Sunday, although they were amazing. And it wasn't about the leadership team, although they were also amazing. There was this higher vision. There was this greater purpose that was so clearly articulated that everything could be built around it. The other thing I noticed was that all of these ministries that were very large all had ways for people to connect in a very small way. In fact, Rick Warren says, if you want to grow bigger, you have to grow smaller. And what he meant by that is, if you want to have more people come be part of your ministry, you have to have opportunities for people to connect with that group of 4 people, 5 people. It becomes, your spiritual family where you can look out for each other. So I started adopting some of that early on at Unity of Wimberley. We called them home groups. They were Unity home groups. So I tested it there, and we had a wonderful experience there. And then in Dallas, Fort Worth, I really got to study the mega churches and see what they were doing, translate that into our New Thought language. And then at one point we just decided, let's take this to Colorado and create from there. So that's when we connected. Is I had the program going. It's, we designed small group curriculum, we designed leadership training, really developing out the program. And as of about 1.5 years ago, all of that that baton was passed. And now Unity Worldwide Ministries is offering the program. It hasn't changed in terms of the content. It's very well researched, and they are offering it as a credentialing, so you can get certified in spirit groups, small group ministry leadership.
Yeah, and that and that's what we need right now, because of the pandemic and things. People are a little bit afraid of large groups.
Yeah.
And they begin to maneuver differently because of that. So if there's a mechanism, which there is, that I know about now, that people can tap into at a small group level, and then have that expand as they feel more comfortable, or as they get more wings, if you will, then that's what we need. Because the way things are being isolated now, I run my thoughts around in my head. They may be crazy as ever, but to me, they seem good. There's nobody to challenge it, right? But if I had a nice small group where I felt comfortable and I trusted, and that's where I think we have to begin back now at that level, so that we can begin to understand what it means to build trust, and to have someone criticize you lovingly, not in a demeaning way, but in a way that's uplifting and correcting and right centering, if you will. And I think that's a model that we're all going to have to embrace, because, as you were saying earlier, I think most centers, if not all centers, their size has decreased. And so the activities and the offerings have to make people feel connected and feel good. And so I'll definitely have to look at that and see how I implement it in my ministry.
Yeah, it's interesting because I forget what year it was I actually started. It was probably around 2009, 2010 when I started developing the program. So we had a lot of ministries, Science of Mind, Centers for Spiritual Living, Unity Ministries, non-denominational New Thought Ministries. We had lots of churches that were part of that pilot and the development of the program. And so when COVID came around, the ones who had really followed it, who had built this small group infrastructure, actually had a huge advantage over those who only had Sunday service, because as soon as the door shut, those who had small groups, those small group leaders could just pop onto Zoom and barely missed a beat. So it was a huge advantage. And now I think we're seeing that, well, the quote that I love from one of the mentors that I studied, who said, transformation happens in circles, not in rows. And what he means is, you can have the Sunday experience and you can walk out of that church feeling like you're, flying high. But if you don't have an opportunity to sit with a group of people and process it and think, how can I take this on in my life? How can I put this to use in my life? It's the conversations that we have with others and the accountability that a small group gives us that allows those really profound teachings to take root and to grow and to make a real difference.
I think you're hitting on, well, I don't think, I know, you're hitting on something really, really important here, because the larger churches sometimes have the money and the resources that made it appear they were going to weather the pandemic, but they lost that engagement piece. And now that engagement is much, much harder to rebuild, because people have gotten used to, well, I can sit at home in my pajamas and my coffee mug's right there, and my breakfast is right there, and I can turn off for a minute to have a bite of lunch and be still part of, and that's where I believe the opportunity resides right now as well.
Yeah.
I remember back, when you were launching spirit groups, and even before that, similar conversations on the CSL side of life, and there was always that air of, oh yeah, that's nice, you keep preaching that, you just keep talking about your small groups, and while
I know, yeah.
we're
on the back, send her off.
yeah, we're going to keep doing church the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing the push, not the pushback, but the recession that follows that, for a lot of communities that are stuck with one pony now, and that's their Sunday morning, not knowing how to start to try to rebuild that in a more digitally connected age.
Yeah. And one thing, and I like to get everybody's response. We live in an evolutionary world. New thought is evolutionary by definition. And for us to continue to linger in the past and not have a evolutionary bone in our mind, if you will, or in our body, as the traditional saying goes, we are going to be stuck in a position where we continue to feel minimized and all of that. So it'd be interesting to hear, your thoughts about how do we continue to honor our traditions, but move forward in the evolutionary way, and how we deliver and how we connect going forward.
Yeah, I think, there's a document from Charles Fillmore, one of the co-founders of Unity, that he wrote back in like 1928, when spiritual centers were just starting to take off, and he was getting word back from the field as like, that thing they're doing at that Unity Center of whatever is not anything like the thing that you're doing at this Unity Center of whatever, and he was getting that feedback. And so he put together this document called Methods and Ideals for Creating a Unity Center, or something like that. And in that document, he laid out his vision for what is the purpose of one of our spiritual centers. And the thing that resonates with me the most is he talks about people go through different stages in their spiritual development. And, if you want to really service someone in their spiritual development, you have to meet them where they are and know that, in the beginning, step one is you have to want to grow spiritually. So it's not up to us to get the message out to everybody in the world. It's up to us to get the message to those who want to grow spiritually, where our message is going to resonate with them. So how do we find those people and invite them in? And then there's a series of steps, and all of this is now part of the Spirit Group's training. But my favorite is the final step, where he says, if you're actually doing the work, what's going to happen is people start learning the principles, practicing the principles, seeing how the principles work in their life. They are naturally going to want to evolve into becoming teachers of these principles. They're going to want to share it with others. And he says, therefore, the job of the leader of the center is the development of coworkers. And I think historically that has not been what we've done. We've created ministries. That's the paradigm we've had in our head, is church with a minister and a congregation. And there's been this hierarchical, traditional idea of what church is. But that's not what the Fillmores had in mind. What the Fillmores had in mind was something that's much more like what you see now in the mega churches, where it is mission centric. You do have a leader, but that leader is there not to have different programs that I get to say, this is what happens there and this is what happens there. They're called churches of small groups, not churches with small group programs, but churches of small groups, meaning that you see each small group is what makes up the body of the church. And that mindset shift is what allows it to grow in a healthy way. When you don't grow in a healthy way, and there's some resistance or a pandemic or there's stress against it, then it doesn't thrive like it would if it were built on a healthier principle. So that's what I saw and have started trying to weave that into our specific teachings.
Oh, wow. I love that because it you know, I always, as a religious scientist, I always take it to a scientific viewpoint. And what you just said to me is the wholeness of the body, right? The body has small systems, limbic system, respiratory system, and each one of these systems does their own thing, but it cooperates with the largest system to create this broader perspective. And it depends on who wants to claim who's leading, whether it's the heart or the head, depends on where you are. One of those is the minister, and they are orchestrating, might not be the right word, but for lack of a better one, it helps organize or orchestrate who takes center stage right now and who takes center stage the next moment. And next moment, both of those may be down and another one is up. And that's how I think we have to begin to look at this in a more natural way in terms of how nature works, and not some idea that we come up with that is out of tune with nature. And if we don't look at the evolutionary process, we're going to be doomed to being stuck in the past.
I absolutely agree.
And this can be scary for a lot of ministers because, I got to give up control. Wait a minute. Yeah, I don't have my finger in every pie here, and I'm not the one saying where everything goes. And I remember hearing that type of, not quite as blatantly, not quite as.
It's there. It's definitely there.
It was always there. This concept that, wait a minute, I have to give up control of means things are going to happen in my ministry that I don't know about, and I'm going to have to be okay publicly with what's happened, even if maybe it's not exactly how I would do it. And I love this conversation because this has been an integral part of the vision and the building of New Thought Media Network. From day one, I tell everybody in this network, my word is not law. It is my law. And that's another conversation. We'll get into it another time. But just because I said that's what I'd like to see does not mean that's how it has to happen. And every program, every show that we have, every team that I trust we're building, they all operate from that sense of self-management. Self-managed teams that we come together with what's right, because the old model says you shall be here Sunday mornings, you shall be here Wednesday evenings, you shall take one class on Tuesdays or Thursdays because Mondays and Fridays are my days off, and there were so many limits. But what we know is, as human beings, our nature is not to accept the limits. Our nature is to push those limits. So let's get rid of the limits. Let's let people explore their spiritual experience with those that are like-minded, that are aligned in one way, whether it's an affinity group or whether it's just hey, we're all sitting together at a book study on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, I like the metaphor I like is I think about like if you were a captain of a ship, so for the ministers who are afraid of what you might lose, it's not so much that you lose, it's just looking at it in a more holistic way. So instead of the crew saying, I'm going to do what the captain says because that's the captain, or instead of the captain doing what the crew says because the crew's the crew, it's like everybody's on board because you have this place you want to go. You have this mission, you have this purpose that you want to create together. And yes, my role as a minister would be, I am the captain of the ship, and I am keeping the vision in front of us, and I am directing what's happening. But you also have people who are rowing, and they're just as important. And you also have people in the kitchen, and they're feeding us, and that's just as important. And everything matters because we're all trying to get to that same mission. We're trying to fulfill a common vision. And when it's shifted like that, then when the captain needs a break, the captain can take a break. Otherwise, I think we put inhumane expectations upon ministers. And the only way that a minister can fulfill the expectations that are set upon it by most New Thought ministries is to have a very small ministry. It's the only way you can possibly do it. If you want to grow a larger ministry, you have to develop other leaders. And it's not just closing your eyes and saying, I'm going to trust everybody. You're consciously creating the structure where leadership can take root and grow. And together we're rowing in the same direction. We're rowing together and we're going to the same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and because when conflict happens, which is also inevitable, it's going to happen. When conflict happens, all that does roll right back up to whoever everybody perceives as in charge. So I agree with you, right? It's not just sitting there going, okay, yeah, do whatever you want. You can do what you feel works as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else in the organization. But when it does, there's got to be somebody that's skilled in the overall perspective, in the overall process, to come back and say, okay, now let's figure out where our communications broke down, or let's figure out where part of this broke down so that we can learn from it. And you've got to have, and that might not always be me. I might be part of the problem. Don't tell my people I said that. I might be part of the problem on occasion, that I can't see a perspective and I need somebody to step in and say, hey, okay, hold on. You slow down, you sit, let's all talk, let's get this going. And ultimately we keep, and where I'm going with this is, yes, it's got to be mission driven and mission centric. And there's got to be that big vision.
Yeah.
It's got to be those that are out front saying, wow, yeah, we're doing great here. And look at where we're going. Look at what's possible. And in a lot of ways, that is, to me, talks a lot about what the book is about and what your current ministry is really all about. We're talking a lot about small groups here, folks, but we've got a whole lot more we want to talk about. And I think you all know where I'm going. We also need to take a quick break and let a couple of our sponsors and other folks say hello. So we're going to take a quick break here, but please stay with us. Share your comments and questions. I see those stacking up in the chat boxes already. We're going to take a real quick break and then come back with more of Mindy Hart-Audlin and New Thought Today in just a moment. Stay tuned. And we're back with more of New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Dr. Robert, my co-host, Reverend Elzia, and our special guest, Mindy Hart-Audlin, is here today. We're talking about all kinds of fun stuff. I just want to focus on a couple of comments that came through. Charles is with us. He said he just happened to stop by, and thank you for mentioning the Fillmore's Method and Ideas resource. I got to say, when I heard you say that, I was like, oh, I want to look at that.
It's fascinating. Fillmore was such a pioneer. As I was studying what Rick Warren, who's also a pioneer, he's been doing this work for over 50 years, and everything that he's doing, Charles Fillmore was telling us back in the 20s, this is what you do, friends. This is what you should do.
Exactly.
Wow.
And our dear friend Tracy Brown is with us. Hello, Dr. Tracy. Shifting the locus of control is good and scary is great. Yes. And to our final point before the break there, folks, so many ministers are not skilled in defining and enrolling people in a big shared vision where they must be the primary leader more than the primary doer. And that's a big part of what we're talking about here is empowering those that want to do and not trying to maintain that sense of control that I've got to do it all and it's not going to be good enough if my fingerprints aren't on in some way, shape, or form. So, Hazy, earthquake in Lakewood, careful there.
Yeah, I got an earthquake going on. My lamp is falling down. Give me a moment to get it straight because I love that point that just was made because that idea that Mindy had on the captain of the ship maintaining the vision is wonderful because what that says is someone is always not only aware of the details, but looking at the longer vision to make sure the details are leading us there, or pushing or driving us there. Because it gets into a point in my mind of a manager and a leader. A manager is concerned with the details. The leader is concerned with the vision and destination. And so there's this oscillation between the two. One is relatively no good without the other, because to have a vision and nothing to work towards it is not good. And to have all these details but not going to a focused place is not good. And so to do that, especially most leaders come from doers, and doers have a hard skill. So once you give up the hard skill, you become very afraid to well, they can replace me because I ain't doing nothing anymore. But you're holding the vision and you're encouraging the parts. And that's where we begin to grow from the small, as you were saying. We move from the smaller and branch out to the bigger because now everybody is in lockstep and we're moving and we're giving and taking and we're moving toward a desired goal that everyone in some form or fashion has agreed to participate in or to hold.
Yeah. And we need a vehicle. We need a vehicle to get us there. And I see the small group ministry structure. In New Thought, we typically think, oh yeah, I've done small groups. I've done, fall book studies. We do book studies. Yeah, we do small groups. And this is something different. This is literally like the boat is this infrastructure of small groups. And, it's like, it's a program that's just created for okay, this is where you come on board and this is where you sit until you're ready to sit here. And then you're going to sit here. And we're consciously inviting people into greater and greater levels of expression of our teachings. And what that looks like is leadership. What that looks like is co-workers so that we're doing the work together.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Before we completely go down this rabbit hole all the way to the bottom, let's shift gears just a little bit. Your book is What If It All Goes Right? As you said earlier, it was originally published in 2008, I think. Tell us a little bit. And I've always loved this and I want you to know, I want everybody else out there to know. My wife and I are both big fans of the whole concept of what if up and what if it all is going right, and not allowing ourselves to buy into that immediate negativity that is so prevalent in society today. We've always said shifting society, shifting culture it can be a messy. We don't want to get into too much of the messiness, but help us understand a little bit of the premise of the book and how it became the What If Club.
Yeah, thank you.
People know about the What If Club even more than the book itself.
Yeah, well, the concept, the book is called What If It All Goes Right? And in New Thought, we get that immediately. It's like, oh yes, like it's that light from above. It's the best case scenario, the vision of what's possible, live from that. So that's nothing new for our New Thought community. I actually was teaching this process before I was a New Thought teacher. So it goes way back when I was first introduced to the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks and studying some of those principles, and the idea that what matters as much as our thinking is the way we feel. And so how do you use your thinking to elevate the way that you feel? And so we used a process, I call it what if upping, because it's using the question, what if, obviously a question that activates the power of our imagination, but using it in a way that cycles us up into greater and greater possibilities, instead of what a lot of people do, which is what if down into what if it doesn't work, or what if I can't. We call that what if downing. It's using your imagination to think up the worst case scenario. So we spin it around and we what if up. So I was doing that actually for years before I found New Thought. And then when I was leading the Unity Church in Wimberley, it was about the time The Secret came out. And it just so happened that Joe Vitale, who is one of the stars of The Secret, lived in our little tiny town out in Texas. And when the movie came out, before it was the huge thing that it was, he gave us he had the DVD, and he said, if you want to do a screening before it officially comes out, he had the ability to do a screening. So at our new little New Thought Unity Church in Wimberley, we packed the place. We got the big screen. We did this viewing, and I remember when Joe was there, his throat was sore. He wasn't feeling 100%. And I remember him asking if at the end he was going to do a Q&A. And he said, you want to do the Q&A with me? And I said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So we did this Q&A, and I had studied law of attraction. He obviously knows all about law of attraction. And the energy in the room was electric. And afterwards, we started doing workshops together, and I dusted off this process, this what if up process that really came from Abraham Hicks' teachings. And of course, Joe Vitale is a prolific writer of books. And so when I said, Joe, I'm thinking about doing a book, he was completely supportive. He wrote the introduction. And so I wrote the book and got out there and started talking about it, started teaching it again, teaching it not just as an exercise that I knew could elevate your emotional state, but really the book came from what I then knew from New Thought principles, like, why is it so powerful? Like, okay, well, we're talking about creating from thought. Like, what is that desired outcome? How do I use my imagination to elevate my thinking? How do I use my wisdom to discern what's mine to do? How do I tap into my enthusiasm, my zeal to bring that energy into my creations? How do I release and let go and not be attached? How do I create from the energy of love? So all those things got woven into what I had observed, like, okay, this is a magical process, but the magic is really the principles when we apply them. Right. So that was the impetus of the book. The book is it's a tool that you can use on your own. Obviously, if you're feeling stressed, you can just like, what if I relax? What if I take a breath? What if I call a friend? What if I do something different? You can use it on your own, but where it really shines is in, big surprise, small groups. So even before I did spirit groups, the book, What If It All Goes Right, is an advocacy of getting together in small groups to practice this process, because where two or more are gathered, no kidding, there are miracles that happen. There is something that happens when we are together that is we're bigger than the sum of our parts. And I've just seen amazing experiences. So now we have an entire nonprofit organization that's designed for cultivating leadership and getting people connected into small groups and using this process as a way to focus on something that you want and have group support in bringing it to life.
I love that, because I am definitely a hammer, as an Abraham Hicks hammer. Because one thing I think that you touch on there that's needed more, again, is that holistic piece, in that once we put the thought with the feeling, we are connecting the Lego pieces, if you will, to get a broader vision. And so when we can move beyond thought and go into feeling and go into full body acknowledgement, things fall into place, right? We've been here for, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Nobody on this program, on it or listening, has ever thought about breathing or thought about making their heart beat. Once it's in sync, it does what it needs to do, and it creates the aura and the environment for us to operate in by being in tune with the feeling, by being open to the wisdom to drop in and get that feeling and say, yes, this is the right way to go. And so by cultivating that in the small groups, you begin to have two or more gathered, and that power, if you will, gets larger, and that attraction, it gets larger, and the vision becomes clearer, and now we can move with ease. Now we can really embody that statement, ease and grace, because we know the grace is coming when we take a wrong step. The feeling, ooh, that's wrong, got to go over here. You don't know why you're going over there, and the grace is becomes easy that way, and the grace and ease just kind of does this two-step dance to lead us to a grander vision. And I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really easy, I have found, that to fall into the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the what if down only leads us to our fear.
It does.
There really is no other destination when I allow myself to follow this downward spiral. And it's really hard to fall into the fear when you're actively considering, again, and we're back into my favorite topic, right? The vision. Because the what if up forces us into the vision. What if it all does go right? What if I am enough? What if there are enough resources? What if Joe Vitale walks in and says he wants to do a gig? What if any of my ideas happen to work? You can't fall into the fear from that. And I'm going to borrow that phrase that we've all heard from Michael Beckwith: the pain pushes until the vision pulls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've always loved about your process and this teaching and this part. And it seems like it's so, that's cute, it's easy, I can learn the whole thing, but it's so much deeper, and it's so much more when it isn't just a reactionary thing, but it becomes part of how you show up in the world.
Yeah, I love the fact that it is so easy. Like, I have literally gone into a first grade classroom and taught children how to use this process and seen their imaginations problem solve and come up with great ideas and then discern what's theirs to do. Like, the process is so simple that you can teach it to a child. And at the same time, there's so much depth to it because it is an expression of spiritual teachings. It is what we know about neuroscience. I mean, it is a way to take a brain that has been wired for fear, repetitive, here's the worst case scenario. Here's the worst case scenario. We're getting it over and over and over again. And that impacts the way our brain processes information. It impacts the way we respond to things. We're like, oh, what's going to happen next? And brace yourself. And, bad things happen in threes and all those things that it's like, why? Because we were told that over and over and over again. So how do you break those neural connections? You have to, one, be aware that, I'm going down that slippery slope again. And in that awareness, to have a tool to say, okay, I'm going to take it a different direction. I'm going down. So if I can go down, if my imagination can take me down there, then my imagination can take me up here. Yeah. It's the same imagination. It's just a little less practiced sometimes. So I think of it like, if I'm going to get into shape, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out every day. Not that workout has to be super, super hard, but I'm going to do it every day. And that's how I see this particular tool is it's not hard, but it is a discipline. And the more consistently you can practice this discipline, the more resilient your mindset becomes, the easier it is to innovate, the easier it is to see solutions, the easier it is to turn yourself around when something is triggering. So it is great to do in community. You can do it on your own, but there's an accountability and there's an energy that happens in community that lets us, just like work out with a friend. It's a little more fun. Yeah. We have fun.
And I love, I'm a problem-solving consultant by trade, and so now I've got to change my thinking, because from that perspective, we're always looking at what is the worst-case scenario because we want to solve for that.
Right.
But now I gotta switch up and say, what is the greatest thing possible? Right. Already knowing that at the end of the day, it could all fall apart, but that I don't need to know. I don't need to remind myself of that because I know that's always a possibility. So now that my energy goes on, what is the greatest possible outcome? What is the greatest thing that can happen?
Yeah.
I love that. So I got a new mantra now. I got to work on it.
I really think for the challenges that we have in the world now, we got climate change. We have, I mean, the list is enormous of the challenges. And if we just start chipping away at those challenges, we're still, as Einstein said, if you want to solve the problem, you got to go to a different level of consciousness than the problem. If we're just trying to solve the, putting out fires or whack-a-mole, we only can get so far. It really, I think our time is calling for a massive paradigm shift in terms of what's possible. And the only way to get to that is to imagine it, is to envision what is this world that we want to step into and what do we need to do to create that? Yes. And as we're trying to create that, we're going to solve those other problems, but we're going to solve them in the context of a new paradigm that's being born. And I think it's kind of an exciting time to be here on planet Earth and get to be the visionaries who hopefully can use our imagination and create something very, very different than anything that's ever been seen before.
Yeah.
Yes. So what if there was a place online where we could go and hang out with other people?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So yes, we do have, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It is a secular organization, so it's out there for anyone who wants to join, and it is a free community. You can join us go to whatifup.org. That's what you're seeing right now is our website. You can go and click on join, and it will pull you into our community. Once you're in there, if you want to contribute, we do have all kinds of bells and whistles and perks and incentives for those of you who want to contribute $10 a month, whatever you want to contribute. We're happy to have you there and give you a place where you can practice. You can learn more about the tools. You can throw out, here's something I'm working on. Here's a challenge. Here's a goal. Here's a dream. And to be surrounded by community that is positive, that is forward thinking, and that wants to see you succeed. That's how we grow together, is supporting each other, lifting each other up.
I like getting lost on your website here.
Oh, there it is.
But there is a wealth of opportunity and information, and that's the important part, right? Is take that first step. So, folks, we've left a link in the comments, and we'll make sure that gets into the description of today's show as well, where you can go and join the What If Club. It's we say it a lot, but it's more true now, I believe, than ever before, that we really are the ones we've been waiting for. We're not going to do this. Who is? I don't see other movements or organizations that are prepared or even just taking the steps that I see happening in New Thought. There is great opportunity here, and I see the What If Club. So we're members. Join and be a part of something that's going on. Mindy, before we run out of time, I really would love to hear a little bit as well. One of the questions we ask everybody on this program is, if you look 5, 10, 20 years out, what's your vision? What vision do you see for this New Thought movement, for the contributions that this philosophy can make, for the contributions that the people that are following this philosophy can make? If you can, and we got plenty of time, so go ahead and articulate that vision for us a bit of what you see coming.
The biggest thing that I see, and I think we have AI to thank for it. We have this artificial intelligence, which in so many ways can help us be more efficient in doing tasks, right? So it has its good side, but the downside is it's artificial, and there's a lot of artificial. There's a lot out there that it's hard to tell what's real and what's being computer generated. And so what I think that's going to do for us is I think that's going to have us have less faith in what's on our screens, and hopefully turn back to each other. I think it's going to have us turn back to what is real, and what is real is what's inside. So I think it's going to have us turn to our local communities, turn to our local spiritual centers, turn to local small groups, turn to our neighbors, turn to our friends, looking for opportunities to connect at that level of authenticity. Like, tell me what is real. Be you, be your best you, and let me be my best me. And as we try to figure it out together, we can stumble, we can fall, it can be messy, but it will be real, and we'll know it's real. The only way we know it's real is because we are together in it. And I think that is the great opportunity is in the next 5 years, I see us coming back to each other in a way that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And I think that's a great opportunity for new thought. In our What If Up Club, that's what we're all about. Get together locally, get together at your local church. We have Unity churches that have What If Up circles that meet at their church. And in fact, we have one church that even says our What If Up circles saved the church, because those were the people who what if up to create a possibility for how to get them through the challenges of COVID. So it's coming back to each other, and it's coming back to the heart and what's real. That's what I see.
Well, yeah, yeah, it is, and I will partake of the feast that's at the table.
Yeah.
You're hitting on something again, really, really important. That as we travel further down the road of what some call the post-truth world, it becomes harder and harder to know what is AI and what is really real. And in connection, I can't deny your reality. I can't deny your humanness. I can't deny your experience when we're sitting across the table from each other. If I'm just eavesdropping in on your life through virtual technologies, is that really who you are? Is that really? And so, thank you. That's a great vision, and calling us to a greater vision to get back together with your peeps.
Yes. And the technology is great. Like this program and the network that you've created, the New Thought Media Network. I mean, to have these types of resources where we have access to amazing teachers and luminaries, and we can tap into incredible wisdom, and then we can bring that into our breakfast table. And I'm here at my breakfast table, literally. We can bring it into our churches. We can bring it into our neighborhoods, and we can talk about it with people that we're like sitting at a table breaking bread together, just like old school, the wine and the loaves and the fishes and all that. Like that's real. And it's a wonderful place to be. I think that's where we're going.
Yeah. And in the brief amount of time we have left, we do want to make sure we say hello and thank you to our organizational sponsors and individual donors. So don't go away, folks. We've still got our final thoughts coming in just a moment. Stay tuned. Join us as we say thank you to those organizational sponsors and individual donors.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Yes, thank you to everyone that's on the financial team and everyone that's making this happen from that financial side of life. We love you, we appreciate you, and please know all of your donations go a long, long way to helping us spread this message far and wide all across the planet. With amazing people like our guest today, Mindy Hart-Audlin. Mindy, thank you so much for being with us. Before we let you go, though, it sounds like signing up for the What If Club is probably the best way to stay in touch with you. But what else is going on? What other things maybe do you have happening that you want people to know about before we wrap this up today?
Yeah, absolutely. So join the What If Up Club. I literally, this is my hotline right here. And as soon as you join, I'm going to be like, hey, welcome. So whatifup.org is the way to get plugged in there. And of course, for those of you who are interested in learning more about spirit groups, there is training, and it's an incredible program. I highly recommend. The team is just doing amazing things with it. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can find that. Go to unity.org and look for spirit groups, and you can go through some of those trainings as well.
Right. Oh, beautiful. And we have links to this in the description and in the chat boxes of this program. As always, folks, you're welcome to email us info@ntmedia.org. That's info@ntmedia.org with any questions. We can help you. We'll be happy to share those links with you as well. All right. Before we go, we always like to do these final thoughts for the day, and we're going to kick it over to Rev Z to get us started.
Yeah, I think for me, the one of the highlights is that whole idea of the ship and the vision, and keeping the light on, like, because in the fog right now, there's a little bit of fog. We want to keep the light lit so nobody runs into us, and we got some focal points. And I think everybody should take a moment to reevaluate their visions and where they want to align and what's the destination they want to arrive at, and then begin to navigate the waters.
Beautiful. Thank you. Mindy.
Yeah, for me, the vision that comes to me is this idea of breathing. In New Thought, we're very good at meditation and prayer. And we know that if it's to be, it's up to me, and let peace begin with me. And we do the work. We've been doing the work for a long, long time. We've been doing the inner work, and it's really important to do the inner work. I think of the inner work as like a big inhale, that it's half of the breath. And the other half of the breath is then taking the impact of that work and sharing it with the world, sharing it with others, and taking those spiritual blessings, that awareness that we have, and using it in community, in small groups, to be a blessing, to be of service to others.
Beautiful. That's why I always put myself last, and I always regret it just a little bit, because I always take all the right answers. But I too am one that is big on the breath, big on taking that time to be conscious of how we're breathing, because for me, that's the gateway to listening as well. And I have to be willing to listen, and listen deeply, not just to my own voice, but to the voice of the divine. The other big part that I'm hitting too many buttons. Stop that, Robert. The other big part that came to me today is, yeah, we may not want to be in big groups, but we've got to get back out into the world. We can't live in a place of fear of being out in the world, of being able to connect with others, and to touch each other's and hug each other's. And so get with your peeps, get a small group going. If you want to center it around What If Up Club, great. We know it works. And if there's something else that's calling to you deeply, but don't allow yourself to fall into the fear and stay home. Stay in that possibility of the what if. And what if it's all going right, and I can go back out into the world, and I can start hugging my friends again. I think now that is, we say it all the time, now it's more important than ever. But right now it is truly more important than ever.
Yeah.
True.
Well, Mindy, thanks again for joining us. I hope you'll be able to come back sometime.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Yeah. And for everyone else out there, thanks for being with us. This is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. We'll begin it back again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Our special guest next Tuesday is Reverend Dr. Cynthia James. So plan to join us. That'll be a fun conversation as well. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.